It's time for the Financial Crisis Talk Center with Ken Gross and David Einstandig from Thav Gross.
Credit card debt is number one. I view it as financial cancer.
40% of your gross income is going to just pay the debt service. You got no chance of getting out.
I would give up my credit score to get rid of debt.
Here's your host, Ken Gross.
This segment, the word of the segment is help. As in, help me, I have a tax problem.
Help, I need somebody. Help, not just anybody. Help, you know I need someone. Help.
Good timing with that, Chris. I like that. Now, the question is, who do you need for that? Yeah, we'll get to who should help you, but let's talk about analyzing what I consider to be a common tax problem situation, not unduly complicated from the standpoint of the taxpayer, but I want to walk through it, the two of us, Dave Einstandig, my co-host, and I, together on this segment. We're going to walk through it and analyze it from a financial crisis management standpoint, which means not myopically, where I'm only the tax guy who only says how I solve the tax problem, but from the broader perspective of the quarterback, which you always talk about, who looks at all the options, because bankruptcy is always a potential, or sometimes a potential remedy to a tax problem that is a great remedy when it applies, and the tax guy doesn't know about it, but the financial crisis management guy who handles all of the issues does know about it.
I think one thing to mention, Ken, is you say tax problem, and I think to myself, well, when does the tax problem arise? And I think that clients and us as practitioners and advisors have two totally different concepts there. I think that the client typically will not understand that they have a tax problem until they get a tax notice, which could be months and months and months, if not year or so, after the decision's made not to pay those payroll taxes or not to file that return.
Absolutely. Well, bottom line is you have a tax problem the moment that you have filed the return and you haven't fully paid the tax. So that covers a lot of people. The question is, what degree is your tax problem? It gets a lot more serious as time goes on. But the moment you're late, you're accruing penalties and interest. And you also have I went too far. You have a tax problem the moment the tax return due date has come and you haven't filed the return or put it on a valid extension. And then if you don't file the return by the extension date, you have a tax problem. Beyond that, if you don't have the money to pay the taxes, you have a tax problem from the standpoint of payment. All right, we're going to talk. Our guy's going to be Mike, the real estate guy. That's going to be our fictitious character for this particular example, this problem.
Is he related to Rita?
No, he's not.
Okay.
He was. Yeah.
They got divorced?
No,
That's a whole other show.
I have to tell you the truth. You're going to see on the next page, he is related to. He's married to Rita. Because Mike and Rita is always my favorite guys, and that's who I came up with as the name. I forgot. Yes, Mike
You're
is
so original.
Yes. He's self-employed in real estate. He's married to Rita, who's his housewife, and she's a part-time piano tutor. This is a new job for Rita. Neither has filed.
How long did it take her to become a piano tutor? I mean,
well, she took piano lessons her whole life.
Okay.
And then she does part-time, and she works for cash, and she gets paid. She makes some money as a piano tutor. It's important.
Excellent.
They have not filed their tax returns since 2004, so they got 10 years of no returns filed, going on 10 years. Mike makes between $50,000 to $100,000 per year in real estate. Rita makes between $1,000 and $10,000 a year on her piano lessons. They own a home. It's underwater. There's no equity. They have no retirement money. They've got $5,000 in savings, and they've got about $50,000 of credit card debt. Their cars are leased, so they have no equity, no savings at all other than this $5,000.
How do you go 10 years without filing? Is that delay that we talked about?
Well, you mean the ostrich delay where you stick your head in the sand and you ignore the problem. That what happens is once you go 1 year without filing and then the second year comes up, you're saying to yourself, well, geez, if I don't file the return, I don't have the money. If I don't file the return, they won't know about it. They won't find me. So you let the second year go by and you say, well, I'll worry about that later tomorrow. Like what was the guy on with
I'll gladly pay
Popeye?
you Tuesday.
Yeah, with was it Wimpy?
Yeah, for hamburger today.
Yeah. And then the third year comes by and you say, oh, I haven't filed the last 2 years. God, if I file now, I owe it for 3 years. I'm dead. So you go to 4 years, 5 years. It spirals. It's not, I don't, is it foolish? Yes. Is it wrong? Yes. Is it hard to understand? No. We see it all the time. It's a spiral. And once it starts, it's very hard. You got to like bust out of that spiral in order to get control of your situation. But you need to do it.
Because for the most part, Uncle Sam is not there when you're 30 days late, like the private practice world, saying, hey, if I don't get paid, you're not getting your product, you're not getting your inventory.
Yeah,
it doesn't work that way.
You miss your mortgage payment. If the late fee kicks in on the 16th, on the 17th, they call you 11 times, where's your payment?
Right.
The
They got
IRS
drones coming to your house now.
The IRS, fortunately, doesn't call you on the 16th and say, where's your return, buddy? We didn't get it. They don't even call you. It takes them a long time. Eventually, here's the problem. They do call you. They catch up with you. And if you haven't filed the returns, that's a criminal act. Not paying the tax is not criminal. No, we don't have debtor's prison in the United States. But we have a lot of prisons. And not filing the returns is a criminal act. The penalties are greater. It's a anxiety level and potential problem nobody should subject themselves to. It's hard enough to get a good night's sleep in America these days with everything that's going on. You don't need to have sitting on the top of your brain the fact that you haven't filed your tax returns for the last 4 or 5 years. You don't need that stress. You got to live a long life. Filing the returns is an absolute mandatory thing. And if you're Mike, you need to bust out of that spiral and get the return filed. Now, that's step one. Now the question is, you're coming to us. Jenny, who's not here, but she's listening today, and you're seeing with Jenny, David, or me, or Brian. We're trying to figure out the whole problem. We're not going to sit there and have Mike come into the office and say, Mike, you idiot, you got to file the returns, and then say, don't worry about it after that. That's not going to make Mike feel good. We're going to say to him, all right, we're going to get the returns filed, and then we're going to deal with how we're going to pay the tax. Because obviously, if he's made $50,000 to $100,000 each of the last 10 years, he's going to owe a substantial tax liability. We're going to have to figure out how to deal with that tax liability. First thing is we file the returns. Then we're going to analyze, could we use the bankruptcy laws, or could we use other rules to help Mike?
Tax problems are major problems. Don't let the IRS levy your wages and seize your assets. There is a solution.
Worth Ave Gross. Our firm will solve your problem.
If you're behind on your taxes and owe money to the IRS, call Thav Gross.
We've been solving tax problems for 32 years. We stop wage levies, resolve unfiled returns, and obtain the best possible settlements.
Call Thav Gross today, 888-235-HELP.
Are you struggling to pay your mortgage? Afraid of foreclosure and the financial mess it can cause? Time is not on your side. Call Alan Stalter, the short sale specialist. For years, Alan has been helping distressed homeowners navigate through the short sale process. His experience will get you out of your home without the credit score damage that follows foreclosure. If you want a fresh start, you need to call Alan Stalter, the short sale specialist, 248-854-3829. or MetroDetroitShortSale.com.
If you're retired and in a financial crisis, there is a way out.
It pains me when I see a retired couple exhaust their savings by paying credit card bills and for a home hopelessly underwater.
Thav Gross specializes in helping retired people in financial crisis.
You just can't keep paying until you're broke. You need to address the problem now.
888-235-HELP. That's 888-235-HELP.
Worth Ave Gross. Our firm will solve your problem.
Going from hourly to salary seemed like a good career move, but now you're working 60 hours a week instead of 40, and you aren't getting paid any of that extra time. You're stuck, right? Wrong. You can be on salary and still be entitled to overtime. If you've been wrongly denied such pay, you may be entitled to that and more. Gold Star Law is here to help you through your employment law problem, whatever it is.
Gold Star Law, protecting employees' rights. Call 1-800-WAGES-10 for a free consultation today.
Carrying too much debt? Resolve your debt. Call Thav Gross.
You don't need to be broke, and you don't need to hit rock bottom. If you have income and you're struggling with debt, dump it. Think about the next 10 or 20 years. If you do what the banks tell you, you'll have nothing to retire with. There is a solution.
Don't waste your future. Call Thav Gross. We're experts at eliminating credit card debt. 888-235-HELP. That's 888-235-HELP.
All right, you're with Dave Einstein and I from Thav Gross, and we're dealing with tax problems, or also AKA Dave and Kenny. How's that? So I even covered it
That's
that
wonderful.
way. All right, so you got to get those returns filed, and then once you have them filed, the question is, how are we going to deal with the liability when it comes up?
And one point I want to make, Ken, is when you say we've got a lag of 5 or 10 years and you just have to file them, so many clients are apprehensive that I don't have all the records, I don't have my W-2s, I don't have this.
Yeah, from 10 years ago would be a problem.
You want to know what? It doesn't matter, because the IRS rules are that you do the best you can. And we have worked with clients that have had 20 years that we've been able to file. You do the best you can, and we can help you recreate what needs to be filed.
It's a good point, because that's usually the biggest impediment, is that even when they're ready to think about filing, they're saying, oh, I'm going to have to dig through the garage and do all this other records. When the client comes into us, we basically say to them, we got to get these returns in, we got to get them filed. And at the end of the day, if they can't get their records together, we'll sit them down and say, all right, let's estimate. You got to estimate, get it down there. You got to work in good faith, and if you have records, you should use them. But you can't wait. Once we identify the problem, we got to get it out there. Now, keep in mind, IRS has your 1099s and has the W-2s that were filed, so they're going to know about that information.
And we can get that information. The other thing is, we may find out, okay, there's 10 years, 6 of them you didn't have any liability.
Right. So that's a good point. Absolutely. All right, so now, let's assume there is a liability. First question is, can we file bankruptcy? Now, most people think that bankruptcy is not available to discharge taxes, but the answer is it is available sometimes. There's a 3-year rule. First of all,
what type of tax?
Income tax, not payroll tax. So when you haven't paid your 1040 tax obligation. The rules we call the 32240. If the 3 years from the due date of the return has passed. So in this case, anything from 2011 prior, if your return was filed, would meet it doesn't matter about whether your return's filed for now, would meet the 3-year rule. The second rule is you must have filed the return yourself at least 2 years ago, 2 years prior to filing the bankruptcy. So in Mike's case, he doesn't meet the 2-year rule because he hasn't filed any of these returns.
But the filing can start the clock.
Correct. That's the whole point for planning in this case, is we get Mike's returns filed, and now we know we can wait 2 years and then potentially file the bankruptcy. And the third component of the rule is that the tax must have been assessed at least 240 days prior to the filing, and that almost always happens, so it's typically not a problem.
So when you talk about the bankruptcy option, the reason why we tend to look at that first is because it's the quickest, the most expansive, and the cheapest way to get it done if that 32240 fact applies.
Correct. And think about Mike's facts. We already know he has no assets other than $5,000. The house is underwater, and he's got $50,000 of credit card debt. So bankruptcy would be a good thing for him, but we know right off the bat, analysis-wise, we got to get the returns filed, and we're going to have to wait 2 years if that's going to be an option. When I'm sitting with Mike, or you're sitting with Mike in the office, and we go through these facts, or we're talking to him on the phone, these are the tumblers that are rolling around in our head when we're getting the facts from the client. Right away, I know with Mike, He's going to probably have a pretty big liability based upon what he told me his income was.
But let's say if Mike
But
would
I
have
know-
filed those returns, and if his number with penalties and interest today was $749,000, would that make a difference?
No, we'd be golden. And if he hasn't filed the returns, I'm saying to myself, I got to get to the 2 years.
So if he was in that it was in that 32240, how much would it cost him to get rid of $749,000 of tax?
Well, we have to get all the returns up to date.
Ballpark.
Probably about $3,000.
That's it.
Maybe $5,000. It might to get those returns filed and help him through that process. Whether it was us or with an accountant, he might spend
So for
$3,000.
less than
the bankruptcy.
5 Gs?
The bankruptcy is a $2,000-$3,000 bankruptcy. It's not that. It's not a complicated bankruptcy. Once all the returns are filed and the transcripts are studied and everything else, it depends on the circumstance. Self-employed, the tax return preparation process might take longer, but it's not a $100,000 problem. It's not a $50,000 problem. It's not a $10,000 problem. I'll grant you that. Now,
but Mike doesn't apply.
Let's go on to the next analysis. So we know bankruptcy would be out there available in 2 years. What else is possibly work? And we had a whole show on offer and compromise a couple weeks ago when Jenny led us through it. Offer and compromise is also a tool in play here. An offer and compromise is you use IRS's Fresh Start program that says if your income is sufficiently low enough and you have no assets, you can settle by making an offer to IRS based upon 1 year's income after allowable expenses, your housing payment, your car expense, your food, your reasonable expenses, and you have to pay that amount within 6 months.
If I wanted that detail from Jenny's show, can I get it?
Yeah, in fact, good point. If all of our shows are on YouTube. Go to Financial Crisis Talk Center. We have a channel. Every single show, all 77 previous shows are on YouTube on that channel. You would go back and I think look a couple weeks ago and you'll see offers and compromise, and it walks you through all the steps of an offer and compromise. Without tooting the horn, I thought it was
so
a great
that's
show.
a second option, maybe for Mike and Rita.
Yeah. Now, for that option to work, another thing to know is, and an offer and compromise, for it to work, once it's accepted, you have to stay clean for 5 years, which means
What does that mean?
you got to file all your returns timely and you got to fully pay. Now, sometimes we have what we kind of think of in our office as habitual offenders. If you're the personality type who's never been able to get square with filing his return and paying his tax on time, chances are that problem is still going to be one we have to wrestle with in the future, and we always think about that as to whether an offer and compromise is going to be the right play. In Mike's case, looking at these facts, if we can get him to the 2-year mark, get the returns filed, wait 2 years, and go the bankruptcy route to get rid of all the tax.
Well, if I file an offer and compromise, how does that affect the 2-year period?
It extends the time frame while the offer is pending, and it can take up to 2 years before an offer is acted upon.
So what you're saying is if there's a good chance that Mike is going to be a habitual offender, then all we're going to wind up doing is giving an extension of that 2 years, and we're better off
with the bank. Plus, we got the $50,000 of credit card debt to get rid of. The only problem is, what if Mike's going to inherit $500,000 or something? Then that could be a problem. If all of a sudden he's got all this money coming in, he's not a good candidate for bankruptcy, or he's got a new job coming in, his income wouldn't even be affected. We'll take a break. We'll come back and we'll wrap up what Mike should do.
Tax problems are major problems. Don't let the IRS levy your wages and seize your assets. There is a solution.
Worth Ave Gross. Our firm will solve your problem.
If you're behind on your taxes and owe money to the IRS, call Thav Gross.
We've been solving tax problems for 32 years. We stop wage levies, resolve unfiled returns, and obtain the best possible settlements.
Call Thav Gross today, 888-235-HELP.
You like your job. What you don't like is the way your boss has been treating you. He's making comments about how you look instead of your work, and he's been touching you inappropriately. If you complain, is he allowed to fire you? Absolutely not. Unwelcome sexual comments, advances, and contact are illegal in the workplace. Make him pay. Gold Star Law is here to help you through your employment law problem, whatever it is.
Gold Star Law, protecting employees' rights. Call 1-800-WAGES-10 for a free consultation today.
Is the debt piling up? Struggling to get by?
It's all about preserving future income. Bankruptcy is one option. When it's right, it's the least costly, most effective way to save your home, eliminate a second mortgage, and wipe out credit card debt. But you need to address the problem now.
We help people with bankruptcy. Call the experts.
We're Thav Gross. Our firm will solve your problem.
888-235-HELP. That's 888-235-HELP.
Every family has the family meeting, and we all know what that means. Dad's got dementia. What are we going to do? What's the care plan that the family has in place? Usually they don't, or they struggle with a care plan. When you go home tonight and you talk to your tax person and you talk to your financial person, say, what's the plan that you have in place? And as soon as they don't give you an answer, give me a call, because I can do it for you.
Carrying too much debt? Resolve your debt. Call Thav Gross.
You don't need to be broke, and you don't need to hit rock bottom. If you have income and you're struggling with debt, dump it. Think about the next 10 or 20 years. If you do what the banks tell you, you'll have nothing to retire with. There is a solution.
Don't waste your future. Call Thav Gross. We're experts at eliminating credit card debt. 888-235-HELP. That's 888-235-HELP.
Let me do a second segment on announcements, and then we're going to get back to Mike and his tax problem. Show switching over to Law and Reality. That's going to come by in beginning of August. Mortgage problems. If you're behind on your mortgage, there's a new law, Reg X. I've written a special report on how to use Reg X to stop foreclosure and leverage yourself into a loan modification. It's a free report called How to Save Your Home with Regulation X, The Hidden Secrets. You want a copy of it, go to regxhomesaver.com. If you're watching on TV, we'll post it up there. It's regxhomesaver.com, or go to our Financial Crisis Talk Center website, and there's a link there. Free report, we email it to you. The analyzer is available on the Financial Crisis Talk Center website. Enter in your data. It tells you what addresses tax problems, which we're talking about today. Loan modifications, is bankruptcy a viable option? Chapter 7 versus Chapter 13, or debt resolution outside of bankruptcy. Want to thank our sponsors, Gold Star Law, Samasco Law, Alan Stalter, Elite REO Services, Short Sale Expert, Trips Auto Shop and Collision Center in Jackson, U.S. Staffing in Jackson and Lansing, and Cardiology Associates of Michigan coming on board. Events. We've got 2 seminars coming up on Wednesday, July 16th at our offices in Bingham Farms from 6:30 to 8, Protecting Your Life's Work. This is a seminar focused on estate planning and elder law planning. If you, your spouse, or your parents have the prospect of entering into the nursing home situation, this is a seminar designed to cover the issue of how do you save their assets so that all of their life savings doesn't end up going to the nursing home and to Medicare. The goal is to try and get Medicare to pay for as much as possible and preserve your assets for your children. And there's a lot of things that can be done. If you don't properly plan, the government ends up taking all of your money. If you do plan, in a lot of cases, you can save all of your money with careful, proper planning. So that seminar, it's free, 6:30 to 8 p.m. To sign up for it, go to cannotafforddtolose.com. That's cannotafforddtolose.com in order to sign up for that seminar. And then on Wednesday, July 23rd, we have another seminar, Your Future Without Debt. This focuses on how to preserve future income for you and your family so that you have money to retire with. My philosophy is in order to save money, you have to minimize debt. Every dollar you spend towards debt that you could get rid of is money that you don't save. It's a penny saved, a penny earned. My philosophy is it's the same as if you can avoid paying a debt, bottom line, that's the same as saving the money. And this is a tough world, and it's all about preserving future income. So when you get to 70, 75, you're not dependent on the state. You're not just, the only income isn't just your Social Security, because it's not going to be enough for food, shelter, and clothing. That's the bottom line. Sign up for that at thavgross.com or financialcrisistalkcenter.com. All right, back to Mike. He's got this big liability. We've determined what it is.
Bankruptcy was not an option until 2 years.
2 years. Offer and compromise we could pursue for him. However, we know based upon his facts, because he has no other assets, he would be, and he's got $50,000 in credit card debt, it would be a smart play to put him in bankruptcy. So we want to try and, our strategy would be, let's get these returns filed and try and wait out 2 years to file the bankruptcy. So he needs to get an installment agreement with the IRS, because once we file the returns, then you're going to get into the collection mode.
Yes and no, because there's a time lag there, Ken. Once we get these returns filed, there still may be a number of months, it could be 6 months or whatnot, where we've already bought 6 months into that 2-year window where he doesn't have to do anything. We negotiate for another several months. He's almost at 8, 9, 10 months or a year into the 2-year period, and he hasn't paid a penny.
And then we have him on an installment agreement. And the installment, if the liability was less than $50,000, you get an automatic 6 years to pay on an installment agreement. But let's be realistic.
It's $749,000.
Yeah, if Mike hasn't filed in 10 years and he's made between $50,000 and $100,000 each year, he's going to have bigger than a $50,000 tax liability. He's got self-employment tax plus his income tax.
But he doesn't know, Ken. It doesn't make a difference if he owes $100,000 or $700,000. That's not going to impact what his payment is.
Correct, because it's going to be based upon his current income less his expenses. So if his current income and he's self-employed is down, and we come up, whatever it is, we come up and we ultimately negotiate and make the process go as slow as we can. We can use collection due process hearings and other procedures that Jenny's talked about on the show in order to expand the timeline to move it closer to getting to the 2 years, although a CDP hearing probably tolls the statute, so we would probably elect not to do that. We want to get to the 2 years.
Not only that, you mentioned something about sleeping, either in this segment or last. I think in this segment. If Mike and Rita come in and we explain how we're going to quarterback this plan for them, and they know what's going to happen or what to expect, they're going to be able to sleep. They understand there's not only light at the end of the tunnel, there's a torch and bright sun at the end of the tunnel, because this is a relatively easy fact pattern to manage.
Put it, and step back for a second. Today, Mike is out there thinking, I probably owe the government with penalty and interest $700,000. I'm dead. I'm never going to be able to get out of this hole. I can't face it. I don't even want to think about it. Suppose Mike's 50 years old. He files the returns in 3 months. In 2 years, he's discharged the debt. He now has 20 more years where he can earn a living, save, and have a retirement.
Mike is the man.
If Mike doesn't do anything, he is dead. But if Mike takes action, he's going to resolve his complete problem. The bottom line is everything is resolvable. You've got to face the issues and do it the right way. There are great solutions. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Enjoy the weekend. Enjoy the summer. We'll be back next week with the Financial Crisis Talk Center.